Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. It's our last episode of 2023. It's been a lot of fun the last handful. This is 6-7 episodes now that we've done since we got the podcast back together. It's been a lot of fun. We're looking forward to continuing it in 2024. It's going to be up to Jason, but there's a decent chance we go to weekly instead of bi-weekly in 2024. So if you'd like to recommend any podcast discussions for next year, let us know in the comments. But today we are talking about our favorite cards of 2023. And hi, I am your host Morgan. Hi, how's it going? And I also have my buddy Jason here. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Hope the people are doing well and having a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Yes, sir. And then we also have Preston. Preston, how's it going, man?
Good, pretty good.
Awesome. We are going to, again, talk about our favorite cards. We're going to be talking about each of us has our top 3 commanders of the year, and we also have our top 3 not commanders of the year. So we're going to see if we can get through all of those today. Should be a good time. If you'd like to support the show, either this podcast or gameplay, anything else we are doing here at Geek and Seek, you can support us on Patreon. That helps us a lot. That's going to help us upgrade our gear and open up new possibilities for us down the road. And then you can also help us with the algorithm, with liking, commenting, subscribing, all of that YouTube stuff. And if you can't financially support us, that's okay. Just go watch some of our other videos in your free time and help get the ad revenue up that way. And then, like I said, this is our last episode of the year, and I know we do every other week for the podcast, but next week with, it being December 27th, people are still recovering from Christmas and stuff. We're taking that week off, so we will come back the next week. So the next episode of this podcast will actually be January 3rd, just so you guys know. And then is that when it's going to go from bi-weekly to weekly? Don't know. We will play it by ear, but just know that is a possibility going into 2024. But we can't talk about next year until we reflect on how there were some really awesome cards that came out this year. I want to go ahead and start us off with my third favorite commander of the year. We're going to do our favorite commanders first before we do our non-commander cards. My third favorite commander of 2023 is Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. For 4 black and a green, it's a Spider Demon 8/8 with Death Touch and Ward 2, and other spiders you control have Death Touch and Ward 2. And then whenever another creature dealt damage this turn by a spider you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food artifact creature token with the normal food text. This is awesome. It's very pushed. I think it's fair because it's a 6-mana commander, and maybe that's a lot to expect nowadays, especially with so many good 4 and sometimes even 3-mana commanders. So getting up to 6 is kind of hard, but I built a Shelob deck, and I really freaking like it. So yes, you could build it as Spider Tribal, but I like it as you play like the Spider more than you're playing Spider Tribal. So you kind of wait, and then when your opponents start playing cool creatures that you would like to have for yourself, then you play fight spells and stuff like that and have Shelob kill them, and then you get the token copies of them. So I think it's really cool. And then obviously, yes, you could do Spider Tribal if you'd like to do that as well. But what do you guys think of Shelob?
I actually like this card a lot just because it's slightly personal to me. Many years ago, when I was first starting to play Commander, I can never remember the name of this spider, but it was a legendary creature. It was Golgari, and it was kind of like a spider.
From Eldritch Moon?
Yep.
Ixnay, maybe?
Yes, I will find it. It will be on screen. You'll see it. I can't think of its name right now. But I saw that card early in my Magic career, and I was like, this would be a cool commander to build around. I could build like a spider deck. This would be really awesome. But spiders just didn't really... It just wasn't a good tribe to build around without just making it like a changeling deck.
Well, and that, as cool of a card as it is, it's just not that great of a commander.
No, it's really not. And then I thought I might try to make it better by making it like a spider and a Hydra deck. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but I said that I was going to build it, and I would call it the Spydra deck.
Yeah.
And then Zaxara came out. And so I was like, well, this already has 2 of those 3 colors, and I'm already putting a bunch of Hydras in it, so I'm just going to, instead of building any type of spider deck at all, I'm going to build a Hydra deck. And then I just forgot about spiders completely, and I always thought maybe I'd go back and build a spider deck one day if they printed more spiders. And this came out, and you built a deck around it. And when you built a deck, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought about doing it, and I was kind of leaning towards doing it. Not that I couldn't do it, just because you have one doesn't mean I can't build one.
Yeah,
it's
we
just
have a couple duplicates.
Yeah, I mean, if he did
commanders.
fight spells focusing, you could do the spider
Yeah,
tribal.
you could specifically. I mean, I do have like 14 spiders in the deck or something, but like, if you were going to do spider tribal, you would have a lot more than 14 spiders.
Yeah,
I was mostly
probably,
doing like the
probably.
play like a spider than the spider tribal. But
Also, like, I've always wanted to use Arachnogenesis
yes,
in the spider deck.
Yes. Yeah,
because
I
it
have
is
that in the 99. It's
so
so cool.
flavorful.
It's
It's,
so
the
cool.
flavor. It's a great card. I think if you don't know about Arachnogenesis, it really is one of the best spells in the color. And it's just in a spider deck. It's so flavorful. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
it's one of the better protection spells, I think, in green. And it something else to keep in mind, and part of why it's so good is it's also tokens that you're making with Arachnogenesis and Shelob. You know, with the making tokens, you can do like token doubling effects and stuff as well. I don't have like doubling season or anything in the deck because I feel like there wasn't quite enough payoff for that, but I do have a couple things like second harvest and stuff like that in the deck.
Right.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Preston, about Shelob?
No, I just really like it. I like how it gives you a spider tribal option, which doesn't have a lot of great commanders, obviously, and it gives you another fight commander, which there are a couple more for that, but
Yeah,
it's still always
there's
fun
a couple
to...
Gruul ones. I think there's a
Yeah.
mono green one. Yeah.
It's
This
always
to
fun to
me-
do those.
This to me is the Tovolar of spiders. Like, this is the commander that the spider deck people have been wanting forever. And it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's an 8/8 with Death Touch Ward 2 for 6 mana.
Yeah.
And
It's a threat.
and
It's a threat by itself. Without
and
having to do
on
anything
top
else.
of that, it's a lord for spiders.
Yeah. I actually, to make you feel a little better if you did want to build Shelob, I do have another deck that plays very similarly. My Ragavan Nimble Pilfer deck. It plays a lot of the same way, as where I'm just kind of like in a weird way, I'm just kind of stealing my opponent's cards, and it scales with the table that way. And I'm like, well, do I need Shelob and Ragavan when they kind of are doing the same thing, even though they're in different colors? So there's a chance I don't keep Shelob, but Shelob is just a threat. I took Shelob with me to MagicCon Vegas, and it throws down hard.
I think I'm gonna build a Shelob spiders deck. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think this conversation has just convinced me to do that.
You might need to. So Jason, why don't you talk to us about your number 3 pick for Commander of the Year?
Yeah, so my number 3 pick, it's not a commander that I built around, but it is a commander that I thought was really cool. And you built a deck, or are going to build a deck? Or?
I thought about it. I almost built. Well, why don't you read us what it is, and then I'll.
Okay, yeah,
explain.
so it's Rowan, Scion of War. It's a 4/2 legendary creature, human wizard with menace. It's costs 1 black and 1 red, and it says tap spells you cast this turn that are black and or red cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. And this was originally what you were thinking about building for your life swap deck, right? Something like that?
No, I think it would have a lot of the same cards, but I was actually, when we did the Throne of Eldraine episode, I ended up building the Goose
Right,
Mother
that's
for
right.
that episode, but my backup choice was Rowan, Scion of War. The reason I didn't do that is because it was going to be way too easy to just murder the table. And I'm sure that Jason's going to give you plenty of reasons as to why this is so cool, but that's also why it's so terrifyingly powerful.
See,
Because what you do is you get some kind of way to dump your life. I mean, you play the fair ways, right? You play like fetch lands, shock lands, talisman. You do the fair things, right, where you're just paying a little bit of life here and there. But then you can do the crazy things like Wall of Blood or something where you can just pay like all of your life but one, something like that. And then you dump Rowan into like Exsanguinate or Torment of Hailfire, and you probably just win the game right there.
yeah, exactly. It's a really powerful commander, especially in these colors where being able to replace X with this is commander, and in this deck you could easily spells easily could cost 30 less. Easily.
And it's in black, so it's in the tutor colors, so you're just going to be able to find what you need in order to do that degenerate nonsense I was just saying.
So ever since you brought this up when we were talking about that episode, I thought that this was such a really cool commander, and I've thought about building around it, but I honestly have been waiting for you to do it because I want to see the direction you'd go with it.
I think it's one of those decks. I've done this quite a few times now, where I'll build a deck, it's way too strong, and then so I'll play it a couple times and I'll take it apart. I think it would be one of those decks. It's one I have a Rowan in my collection. I have most of the pieces I would need to build the deck. So it is a deck that I might just build for fun and play it a couple times, but I think it's a deck that's strong enough that I wouldn't want to keep it together because I feel like it becomes repetitive and it just becomes a lightning rod for removal, and then it's not going to feel fun because you're either going to curb stomp your opponents or they're going to remove it before you can do anything with it, because it also is a tap ability and doesn't have haste. So unless you have like Lightning Greaves or something like that in order to give it haste right away and protection, then you might not get that much.
You could also build this deck around the Eldrazi.
Stop it.
Oh no, another commander deck where the Eldrazi are the finisher.
Yeah, this honestly, this might be more effective than Rakdos.
I think so. Did you have anything you wanted to add about Rowan?
As soon as you started reading all the text and I remembered what it did, I just thought of Bolas' Citadel and kind of vomited on the inside a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
All right, Preston, why don't you walk us through your number 3 card?
All right. Well, so for this list, when I was putting it together, I actually have a quick honorable mention I wanted to talk about, which is Amalia Benavides Aguirre. I do like that card, and it might have made my list, but we literally talked about it, last episode or the episode before?
I think just 2 episodes ago where we talked about our favorite cards from Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about that one this episode, but I did want to mention that would maybe make the list over my third place that I did go with, who is Serdan the Shipwright. It's 3, a green and a blue for a legendary creature elf noble with vigilance. It's a 3/4, and it has the text Secret Council. Whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, each player secretly votes for a player, then those votes are revealed. Each player draws a card for each vote they received. Each player who received no votes can put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. And what I really liked about this card was the voting mechanic, which I've never done in any of my decks, really. I might have had 1 or 2 cards here or there that kind of just exist because they do whatever the deck does. But recently I've really wanted to build around the voting mechanic. I don't know if I would use him specifically, but he is definitely a pretty good option for it, I feel like.
Yeah, I think part of what is special about Commander is the political aspect of it, and nothing really gets more political than voting, because this is a democratic republic, goddammit. What did you have anything to add?
This is like the American Idol of Commander decks. I honestly really love this. Cool. I think cards like this are so much fun, and they're really nice and refreshing to see at a table. In this multiplayer format, you see something like that and you just immediately know this isn't, or it shouldn't be like a standard broken Simic deck that I see every time I go out to play a game. It should be something that's going to be a lot of fun and everybody's going to have a good time playing with this deck at the table.
I like this one specifically because it's group hug and group politics. Like, it's bringing them together in a way that I really like.
Yeah.
It almost like fully embodies like what politics is, that quid pro quo where if you don't vote for me and let me put this onto the battlefield, then I'll do something for you or something to that effect.
We've had many a times recently on this YouTube channel and in our play group where we've proven that even fair Simic, quote unquote, is still pretty bonkers. Like Simic just be Simic Inc. We just recorded today, as of the recording of this podcast, we also recorded the Pauper Commander episode, and Preston played a Riven Reef deck. I played the Goose Mother on the Eldraine episode. I have a Jalriel deck that I've been building. Even fair Simic is pretty damn good. So I think this is like that. It's not going to draw hate as much as a lot of like
There
it's not
should
gonna
be
like
no
Tatiova
one-
or anything like that. But
There should be no one that hates this commander.
No, it seems pretty
when it
fun.
hits the table, like if you see, oh, they're playing that, this is gonna be a fun game. There's absolutely no chance that anyone sees this at a table and says that deck's broken. They need to go first.
If you hated this commander, it's probably just because you don't like commander as a format.
It's because you play CEDH.
yeah. Yeah, and speaking of filming that game earlier today in End Step, and now we're doing this, and I had band practice today. That's why my voice is not up to snuff, so I apologize for that. But my next commander is Yargle and Multani. This is for 3 black, green, 18/6 Frog Spirit Elemental, and that's it. The flavor text is, I've heard much about you from my daughter, Multani rumbled. There was a time when I'd balk at your aid, Phantom, but she has shown me the merit in Urborg's strange ways.
How did
Replied Yargle. And I also built this, Yargle and Multani. I also built this deck, and I've only got to play it once, but I won, and it was satisfying. And sometimes when you win, sometimes people are like, oh, well, dang it. But then when I won with Yargle and Multani, everyone was like, nice. Just because it's so funny and random. And you get to abuse like crazy things. Like if for 6 mana, you get 18 power. So you just play a bunch of cards that care about power. Like, you play like cards like Greater Good, sacrifice this, draw cards equal to its power. You play a bunch of things like that, and then it doesn't take much of a buff to just one-hit kill someone with commander damage. It doesn't take much to do that. So it's a little Voltron in that way as well, but you're mostly just playing it for, like, getting value off of the crazy high power. I honestly think March of the Machine had a lot of good commanders in general. I like the team-up commanders in general. What do you guys think of my little frog friend?
I think original Yargle doesn't quite work. It wants to do something similar, but being mono black kind of holds it back.
5 mana, 9/3, I think.
Yeah. But this one, because it has green, that's where a lot of your Powers Matters cards are at. Mm-hmm. So I think that really pushes it over the edge into where it's like an actual playable creature.
Yeah, part of what is so fun in my build is I played the green cards that care about, sacrifice to draw cards equal to its power, but then the black cards have a lot of like, if this creature would die this turn, return it to the battlefield. So I'll attack with Yargle, sacrifice Yargle, draw an ungodly amount of cards, and then for 1 mana, 2 mana, I just bring it back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bonkers.
I think that cards like this are some of the developers at Wizards' favorite cards to create.
Sure.
There's absolutely
For every card that is like 90,000 words, there's also a card like this that is like, it's
Someone
beautiful.
had this idea, typed it all out, looked at it for a second, and laughed for like 5 minutes straight.
Yeah, just pure joy.
I'm gonna put this card on the screen because it is my favorite flavor text of all time. I think the card's called like Sewer Crocodile or something like that. I don't remember, but it just has some of the funniest flavor text. No, it's a mono black card.
Oh, okay.
Catacomb Crocodile. I'm gonna put this on the screen. So Catacomb Crocodile's flavor text is, "I am Sewer King," said Rat. "I am quick and cunning, and I have."
And I know.
And I know every tunnel. "No, I am king," said Zombie. "I am cold and deadly, and no rot can harm me." Then Croc came and ate them both.
Yeah, it has like the same energy as
Yes,
the Yargle
exactly.
one. Yeah.
Whenever I first read Yargle, it made me think of Catacomb Crocodile. I love that flavor text so much. That will be tattooed on my body at some point.
See, what's so funny about these like just giant vanilla creatures is you have all of the room in the world for flavor text. So, Jason, why don't you walk us through your next favorite commander?
So my next commander is actually one that I did build. I built it from a precon, and you'll see it later on in the season. It's Gimbal, Gremlin Prodigy. Gimbal is a 4/4 legendary creature, Gremlin Artificer. He's 5 mana, 2, a green, a blue, and a red, and it says artifact creatures you control have trample, and at the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 red gremlin artifact creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens you control. So this deck, I only got originally as my artifact deck for the episode we play, where we're all playing artifact themed decks. I never really built a deck around artifacts before, and so I figured this would just be an easy way around that. And I played it a couple of times as the precon, and I won one. I think I played 3 games, and I won the second game that I played. And this is against decks that like my friends have played with and built. They've been constructed for years, so they've had years worth of new cards coming out that got replaced other cards in the deck and countless upgrades that these personal decks that my friends have went through. And this deck stood toe to toe with all of them and won one of the games. And so I was really impressed with it, and then all I did was just take it home, and that was as the precon. That was before I did anything to it. And then I just took it home and I upgraded it so much, and it just became a powerhouse. It's a really, really good deck now. It's really powerful. And Gimbal was a commander that I did not think was going to be that good. But honestly, more than just making a creature at the end of every turn, the best ability that it has is giving your artifact creatures trample. I did not realize how strong that was going to be in this deck.
Yeah, I think the tokens that it is making itself aren't necessarily that impressive, but you are, having the Simic base, you're going to have, ways to get more counters. You're going to be able to double your tokens. There's a lot of just good artifact token generations, and then you also have red, which gives you treasure tokens and whatnot. And red also just has a lot of good artifact payoffs and artifact creatures. So I think it is a very fair commander. But yeah, giving your artifact creatures trample when they're potentially going to get quite large is pretty impressive. And I've played against it when you've played it a couple times now, and it is way more threatening than you would think. It's also just really cool play design. Having a teamer artifact matters deck is just kind of neat, and it's the fact that it's specifically artifact tokens is also just a fun twist as well.
Yeah, and honestly this really fits with me because it's similar to Thalisse in the sense of like it doesn't care if the tokens are creature tokens or not. I mean, this cares if they're artifact tokens, but not just artifact creature tokens. So I mean, clue tokens, food tokens, map tokens, treasure tokens, creature tokens that are artifacts, gold tokens. I'm sure that there's a bunch of did I say map tokens?
Yes.
So
there's lots.
There's a bunch of different artifact tokens that you can make, and like just let's do a couple basic ones. So if you have a food token, a treasure token, one of these gremlin artifact tokens, because that counts, and then like a map token. At the end of your turn, you're getting a 4/4.
Yeah.
You're getting a 4/4 at the end of every turn if you have all 4 of those on the battlefield, which that happens consistently on my turns when I play this deck. So I was just really impressed with it, and I think it's a really, really cool commander. And every time, I've never had a bad time playing this deck.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
I really like how with this, it wants your artifacts to all be named different things, because with a lot of those artifact token decks, it's like, oh, here's my 15 cards that all like double the treasures you make. Your treasures tap for twice as much. Or your Karnstructs want to build each other up. Or you have a Thopter army. This one wants you to get a little bit of everything, which I think is pretty unique.
And also, it kind of like, it allows you to build a deck around it for almost like pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Because if you just had the card, if you didn't buy the precon and you just have the commander, all you would need is just a bunch of different cards that more likely than not are going to be pretty cheap that just make a bunch of tokens, like make a bunch of different artifact tokens.
I know that one of the complaints with the March of the Machine precons in general was just their low value. Like there wasn't a lot of good value in them, but they all played really well. I actually enjoyed all of those precons. But Academy Manufacturer, which is in that precon, thank God, all-star. If you would create a clue, food, or treasure token instead, create one of each.
It's probably it's probably the best card in the deck as far as synergy.
Yeah. Preston, why don't you guide us through your second favorite commander of the year?
All right, next up, I have Narcy, Fable Singer. She's a 3/3 human bard, legendary creature. She costs 1 white, 1 black, 1 green. She has lifelink. Whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, you get to draw a card. And when the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is that saga's mana value. I really like this one because it's life gain. I always enjoy a good life gain card. We all know that. But also, when enchantment, like when the sagas first came out, I didn't really like them, I think, the first couple sets we got them. But as time has gone on and we've got a bunch of different options, I've really started to love sagas a lot more. So to have this option here to play as a saga commander, I really enjoy. Because the only other one is Tom Bombadil, I think.
Yeah.
Which I already have 5-color decks. I don't need another 5-color deck. So, and I don't have a lot of 3-color decks. So I'm really excited to build this deck at some point. I really want to.
Yeah, I've always loved sagas since they first came out. I always thought they were really cool. I thought it would be cool to get some kind of, because I don't necessarily love the Enchantress theme, because Enchantress decks tend to be play an enchantment, draw 5 cards, you know, and it's like, well, how the hell are you supposed to win the game? At least like Narcy has like ways for you to win the game on there because you're draining your opponents, but also sagas are just unique and they're special. And yeah, you're right, there is Tom Bombadil, but yeah, I think once you start getting to a point like with us where we have several decks, you end up with a couple 5-color decks. It's more interesting to narrow down and do something specific, and Narcy is, again, a win con. It's an advantage engine, and I like that it narrows you in on colors more than Tom Bombadil. I will say I started building Narcy, and the reason I backed out of it was because I feel like it's still not quite there. When you play Tom Bombadil, which also came out this year, let us know if you like that commander. I know a lot of people were really excited about that one. When you go into 5 colors with sagas, you actually do have enough options where you can play the best of the sagas that you can make the deck work. When you're in 3 colors, you can do it, but there are some sagas in there that you're adding that you're just like, I'm just adding this to have more sagas in here, and it's not even that good. So I think in a couple of years, this is probably going to be a really awesome commander. I'll probably bite the bullet and finally build it. But I think in being limited to 3 colors is like maybe not quite there. You're probably playing a couple sagas that aren't that impressive right now. But I agree, as if we're just talking cool factors, this is there.
Well, another thing is you don't exclusively have to use sagas, because you still get card advantage if you have other enchantments that you're sacrificing, when you're sacrificing.
And there are some other artifacts that can do that.
Like there's...
Or not artifacts.
Like there's the one where you can sacrifice to go get some basic lands. It has flashed. There's a couple others like that.
There's a couple like seal of whatever that you sacrifice them and destroy something.
Yeah.
All I can say about this is I saw it and I saw the word lifelink and I was like, yep, of course Preston. Of course Preston would like this. It's a 4/4. It's a 3/3 for 4 that is lifelink, and it's a human.
Yeah, and Preston did play the pre-con that this came in on our Commander Masters pre-con gameplay video, which I believe is like our second most viewed video. So thank you so much for helping us have a couple really, big videos for the channel this year, helping us grow. And if you somehow haven't seen that game, go check it out. But I want to tell you guys about...
Thank you. We love you. Yes. I love you very much.
I want to tell you guys about my personal favorite commander of the year. This is from March of the Machines. This is Elenda and Azor. For 3 white, blue, black, it's a 6/6 Vampire Knight Sphinx. It's one of the team-up commanders. These are a couple of the Ixalan characters. This is flying in War 2. When it attacks, you may pay X white, blue, black. If you do, you draw X cards. And then at the beginning of each end step, you may pay 4 life. If you do, you create a number of 1/1 black Vampire Knight creature tokens with lifelink equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. This is awesome because you just kind of go ramp, draw a bunch of cards, and then you're kind of evening out the life you're paying and whatnot by all these life linkers. So there's also like a token sub theme. There's a couple different ways you can take this. I did build a list for this that I'm probably going to build on for Magic Online, since they did end up putting this card on Magic Online eventually. I have a version of it on Moxfield that I've played on Spell Table a couple of times. The only reason I haven't built it in paper yet is because I think it plays too similarly to my Queza Augur of Agony's deck that I actually just played a couple episodes ago on our Commander gameplay series. We were on the episode where y'all played Uncommon Commanders. If you haven't seen that episode, I got to pop off quite a bit. It was fun. Everyone got to play really well in that game, honestly. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. But I think Elenda and Azor is probably too similar as far as what the deck is. So I think unless I was like emotionally willing to part with Queza, it doesn't make sense to also have this in my collection. And I don't think I'm going to do that. But I really like this card. I think it has fun play patterns. I like that it's draw a lot of cards, ramp into big crazy spells. There's a token sub theme, and I don't really play with tokens, so I would like the slight variance. I would like the little bit of a challenge. So I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, this has you written all over it, Morgan. It really does. I mean,
This is kind of also my favorite color combination.
yes, I 100% agree with that. Without actually, if I had to make two guesses, my first guess would be this is a card that you're building around, and my second guess would be Preston, because Preston has, he's got his mono white light pause deck, and then he's got his Dimir. Do you have just one or two Dimir decks?
Just one.
Just
yeah,
Geigen?
just the one. Yeah.
Geigen.
Yeah.
But it's a cool card. I think that its ability to draw cards kind of costs a lot. I mean, you have to pay. You have to pay 4 mana minimum to draw one card. That is kind of a lot.
I mean, it's kind of like I kind of think of it as like Sphinx's Revelation, right? Like if you're not putting much into the X, it's not worth it. But if you have like an absurd amount of mana, it's pretty good.
And what I will say about it, what is nice, is you're guaranteed, if you activate this ability once. Okay, so if you think about it, this ability is more like, pay 4 mana, draw a card, make 2 1/1s with lifelink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, assuming it stays on the battlefield by the time you get to your end step, but essentially that's kind of what the ability is. And when you look at it that way, for 4 mana to make 2 1/1s, draw a card, and 2 1/1s with lifelink, 2 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens, having the color identity might be helpful. Having the creature subtypes might be helpful.
Very good creature subtypes.
They're very good. And
knights, vampires.
Yep. So that's helpful. Looking at it that way, the ability isn't that expensive now. But if you're looking at it solely as I'm going to do this to draw cards. I will say, infinite mana sink, you can draw your whole library with it. So anything that allows you to do that, I guess, is pretty good.
I think what's most impressive about it is just when you pay the 4 life at your end step to make all those tokens, it's just the cards you've drawn this turn. So you don't even have to do it into that X ability when it attacks. You can just like have, you could just do a wheel, or you could have like another big X draw spell that's maybe more efficient.
Good point.
It's just the card you've drawn that turn.
I was gonna say,
but having the option is super nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was probably like if your hand is empty, you use that ability, but otherwise you're playing white, blue, black. The rest of your deck is card draw spells.
Yeah.
You don't need to use that ability unless that's all you have.
I
was looking at this too much as just the card itself as far as being a commander. I was looking at it too differently.
Yeah. I like the fact that, yes, I'm just going to ramp into this giant creature and pay these giant X draw spells. That sounds really fun. But the fact that you are in white specifically and you have this token sub theme, I think opens up some other fun possibilities. But Jason, why don't you talk to us about your favorite commander of 2023?
My favorite commander of 2023 is Gandalf the Grey. Gandalf the Grey is a 3/4 legendary creature avatar wizard for 5 mana, 3 blue and a red. And it says when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that hasn't been chosen. So the first ability is you may tap or untap target permanent. The next one is Gandalf the Grey deals 3 damage to each opponent. The next one is copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. And the last one is put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Sir Ian McKellen. And I love Gandalf as a character. I don't know much about Gandalf from the books other than what my roommate and I have discussed, because my old roommate, I've called him my roommate now for like a year and a half since he's moved out, and I've had my own place. But he's like one of my best friends, so for like 4 years, that's how I referred to him. Anyways, he and I would talk a lot about the Lord of the Rings because he was really into it, read the books and whatnot, and he would just kind of give me like, I guess the
Lore.
Yeah, we would just talk about it. The footnotes. I was trying to think of the word. Yes. And so I always thought it was really cool, and then I started watching the movies a lot. I mean, I'd watched them before, but I really started to get back into it. And then when found out that Wizards is coming out with a Lord of the Rings themed set, I'm like, I cannot wait to see. And I immediately knew they were going to have a separate card for Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White. I mean, how could you not? I thought maybe it might have been a modal dual face.
Gandalf the White almost ended up on my list.
Gandalf the White is stronger than Gandalf the Grey, without question. He's probably he's not the best commander in that set, is he?
No.
There's a lot of great options.
There's a lot of
commanders really good options. But this is just my personal favorite. I built this deck. I have so much fun with this deck. It's not a stupid, broken Izzet deck that just goes nuts and blows people out of the water. It's actually fun. You know, people's like, I've never had anybody complain to me about this deck. The other Izzet deck I have is Joyra.
People do complain about that one a little bit.
Yeah. And there's at least one person at every table, unless everybody is playing like a CEDH style game, and then everybody kind of knows the deal.
Yeah, right.
But this isn't an Izzet deck. This isn't an Izzet deck like that, and that's kind of why it was my favorite of this year, because it's a deck that I have fun with every time I play it. Just like I said with Gimbal, but it's pretty tame for what it does, and it works. It's strong.
The way the last two cards were like, oh, that's such a Preston creature, that's such a Morgan creature, this is a Jason creature.
Without question.
It's an Izzet creature that's like, all right, what's the card do again? What's the card do again?
It is such a Jason
What's it
card.
do again?
You'll always forget.
Any card that the entire table has to read a few times throughout the game, chances are I really like that card.
And we have to read it the next time you pull it out because we've all forgotten.
Chances are that's one of my favorite cards.
But that's what's kind of cool about it, is that it's so modal. It's pretty flexible.
It's super versatile.
Without being too strong with any of them.
That's what I was going to say, is when this was one of the first cards they previewed for the set. And I remember actually being disappointed by it because, you know, Gandalf, based on the lore, I mean, even if your base understanding of Lord of the Rings is just the movies, like most of us have seen the movies, right?
Which, by the way, don't nerd shame people for not reading the books and only watching the movies. It's not cool. People like what they like,
and it's all great. I love Tolkien just in general. I think he created the best fantasy world there is. But even if you don't have any knowledge of the books, like, he's even more OP and awesome in the books, but in the movies, he's one of the most powerful, awe-inspiring characters. And I just felt like the cards, for the most part, are fairly lackluster. Gandalf the White's pretty strong. But Gandalf the Grey, it on its surface seems pretty weak. Like, none of these options seem that strong. But, and I think why I've turned around on that is because you built the commander deck for it. In practice, its flexibility is actually very, very nice. There's a lot of, like, I thought the one that was most outrageous was the put it on top of your library. I was like, why the hell would you ever want to do that? But if you're just playing at instant speed, it's a good way to protect your commander. And then if, like, oh, here comes a board wipe, okay, I'm just going to opt, right? Put Gandalf on top of your library and you can just play it again next turn, get around the commander tax. You know, it's so flexible, and I do think that it is not very strong. Like, if you're going for like a strong spell slinger deck, this is not the commander for that. but it does have a special fun factor that can't be unnoted.
I'm glad Gandalf the Grey is like this little tricksy, do a little million small things, and then Gandalf the White comes in to just really slam you in the head with a brick.
Yeah,
Because that's what it was. I mean, Gandalf the Grey showed up to the Shire and was ready to have a good time and
bring the
hang
hobbits
out.
on an adventure.
And then, he fell to the Balrog and he returned as Gandalf the White because he had unfinished business. And then Gandalf the White didn't mess around.
No.
He got stuff done, fella.
He ain't messing around. Preston, why don't you lead us through your favorite commander of 2023?
Here we go. Atali, Primal Conqueror.
Now that's a Preston
Legendary
card.
creature, Elder Dinosaur, 7/7, 4/7 mana, 5 generic, 2 red, with trample. When he enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among these non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. And then you can pay 9 generic mana and 1 Phyrexian green mana, which is 2 life or a green, to transform him. You can only do this at sorcery speed. And then he becomes Atali, Primal Sickness, Legendary Creature, Phyrexian Elder Dinosaur, 11/11, Trample, Indestructible. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters.
Blightsteel Dinosaur.
It's literally whenever Atali deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. It's like, it might as well have said that.
It's so awesome.
And you want to know the weird thing? I don't even like that side that much. I do like that side, but I love the first half of the card way more.
I mean, is it not one of the best dinosaurs ever printed now?
I mean, that enter the battlefield effect is... it's so Timmy, right? It's this 7 mana 7/7 with trample, and it's a dinosaur. You're like, oh, hell yeah. But then it enters the battlefield, and you're getting a bunch of new cards for free. And pretty much, maybe not all of those, because it's a May ability for casting them, right? You're not necessarily going to want all of those, and some of them are going to be more situational. But especially in multiplayer and Commander, that is insane. And in fact, we overlooked this card so much. I didn't realize it was like a $15, $20 card. But we overlooked this card. It's good enough to get like standard play and stuff. Like, that's how good this card is.
At 7 mana. Any card being played at 7 mana in standard.
Well, we have a slow, grindy standard right now, but even then, yes, it is pretty impressive, and it's also just like, it takes the joy, because OG Atali, I think we can agree,
It's so
is
fun, but it's so weak.
It is. Like, there are a couple decks where original Atali is a banger, but in the general sense, if you're just playing like, I need some fun big creatures in my red deck, you might play Atali, but it's not that good. This is just so much better. Now, it is 2 colors, right? It does have the color identity of being Gruul, so it can't just go in your red decks or whatever. But
That means you can ramp it out now.
Yeah, but
though.
here's always been the problem with Atali. Here's always the complaint with Atali. Unless you have something else on the battlefield, it comes in and does nothing.
right.
It's just a body. It comes in and doesn't do anything.
And
you
people
have to
don't
wait
want you to do anything, so they're going to try to kill it that turn.
Exactly.
Yep.
So unless you have a way to give it haste when it enters the battlefield and swing with it the turn that you get it, it's just a 6/6. And I've played so many games where I've had Atali on the battlefield and it doesn't even survive a rotation. That happens so often because people just see it and they're scared because they don't know what's on top and they don't want to lose any of their cards anyways. So I think that this is a really, 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 really good card. I think it's stronger than original Atali.
Yeah.
I think
Switching
it's
into
one
Enter the Battlefield effect.
I think it's one of the best dinosaur cards that's ever been printed.
This one is also better because you're not going to whiff. You might not want to cast a spell. You might just let it stay in exile, but you will hit something. Original just looks at the top. You might not get something you can use from the top. With
Yeah,
original.
exactly.
Right. Because it doesn't. The original Atali doesn't let you play lands, right?
Yeah, you can't play lands,
So,
so-
if there's a land on top, which this doesn't let you play lands either, but at least it's going to let you dig until you hit something that's
You
on
get
top.
a
And then
skip
the
lands.
best part about that, what happens to the rest of those cards you exiled from your opponents?
They stay in exile.
They're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually have that in the 99 of my Chaos deck just because it's a big banger that everyone goes, hell yeah, when it shows up. But it also, you're stealing cards from your opponents, and that's a good time. So we're also going to go ahead and hop into our top 3 cards that are not commanders. We'll probably go a little bit quicker. There's a little less nuance here. I think honorable mention goes to the One Ring. That was originally going to be my number 3 pick, but as you've seen in our gameplay series, especially with Jason over here, we've seen this card. The One Ring is kind of bonkers. It's I remember when it was previewed, we were all like, it's good. Is it that good? Yes, it is that good. It is insane. It's not worth spending more time talking about it than that. So my number 3...
Such a flavorful card. I love the flavor about that design.
It's powerful, and it will kill you unless you have... Well, that's the thing. Is like it seemed flavorable because it's like it gives you a lot of card advantage, but it will kill you if it goes unchecked. But the problem is there's so many ways to bounce it, to sacrifice it, to flicker it. So my actual number 3 is Virtue of Knowledge. This is for 4 and a blue enchantment that says, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So it's basically a Panharmonicon effect, except Panharmonicon only counts your creatures and your artifacts. This is going to count other things as well. So there's other implications. Like if you have this it is an enchantment. If you're playing in an enchantment deck, if you like an enchantment enters the battlefield, draw a card, well, this is going to double that. Things like that. What's more interesting is that it is an adventure. And the adventure says it's Vantress Vision for 1 and a blue instant. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Triggered abilities gain copied is pretty good. I mean, you might just have triggered abilities on your commander or something like that you care about doubling up for value. But something that I think is kind of sneaky about this card that I don't think a lot of people realize is that it's kind of blue ramp. If you have a fetch land, that trigger goes on the stack. You can now, for 2 mana, copy that trigger, and you just 2 mana land ramped in blue.
More accurately, that activation goes on the stack.
Well, yes. So there's some really sneaky fun things that you can do, and so to get full use out of this card, right? You want to spend the 2 mana adventure, and then you can pay, from exile cast the 5 mana enchantment later. I like adventures just in general. I like that it's kind of like 2 cards on 1 card, and maybe it's not the most efficient, right? Panharmonicon, for instance, is 4 mana of generic, so right, it's easier to cast than this. It's less mana, it's less specific, but this is pretty cool, and I like the flexibility. I did just build a rune deck, which is an upgraded version of my custom commander that I just played on the most recent episode of our Commander gameplay series, so it's pretty cool.
I think that this card is really good on each individual piece. I think it's a little bit frustrating that they're on the same card, because I almost wish it was a counter spell. Because it's just, I want to do both of the things at the same time. I want to have the enchantment on the battlefield where the triggered abilities get triggered at additional time, but then I want to copy that with the same spell. But that's just me being greedy. That's literally just me.
That is the problem of singleton formats, my friend.
And that's me as like who I am, wanting to just play solitaire every time I play Magic. That's all. That's where that comes from.
Do you have anything to add?
I like the virtues, but all of them I looked at, I feel like they just didn't fully connect with me.
Yeah, I think all of them are okay. Some of them I like more than others. This is obviously the one I like the most, since it's the one I'm going to highlight. But I also want to just real quick before we move to the next card is mention that the showcase for Eldraine is my favorite showcase. It's so nice. Very satisfying. And still easy to read.
You'll see it on screen, but it looks pretty nice right now.
All right. Jason, don't spend too much time on this because we just talked about this on our Ixalan video, but walk us through your next card.
So, first honorable mention, I want to give an honorable mention to all of the Ent creatures. from the Lord of the Rings set. I love those Ents. They're some of my favorite just creatures in all of like the Lord of the Rings universe. So honorable mention to them. But my third favorite card from this year was Tishana's Tidebinder. I said this when we talked about this card in our Ixalan episode. This card is going to be a blue staple one day. I firmly believe that. This card will be in every single blue deck within a year. I promise you. It's such a good ability. It has an underrated... I don't even know how to phrase what I'm trying to say. The fact that it just shuts something off completely. Not only does it... Because a lot of stuff... If you're activating a Planeswalker's loyalty ability, and you counter it with just a spell that says counter target activated or triggered ability, well, they could just activate that on the next turn rotation. Or if they're playing that Teferi Planeswalker, they could activate it on the next player's turn. Something like that.
The 4 mana extra turns one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Master of Time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This shuts it down. Not only does it counter it that one time, you can't do it again until this is gone. So it's really good because it stops what your opponents are trying to do, but then it also forces your opponent to use one of their resources to get rid of it. So it's such a good card for those two reasons, and that's why it's my number 3 card of this year. Also, Morgan just pulled up this art. I'm gonna put it on screen. I've never seen this before.
I hate it.
This could be my favorite art in all of Magic: The Gathering.
No. So
see,
weird.
and this just shows how different the three of us are, or I guess
Well,
how
art is
different
subjective,
I am. But from these two, I just love it. It's so trippy and
I will say
beautiful.
this card is really sweet. I will say that the fact that it's just going to become a lightning rod for removal from the player whoever you use this on. However, it's a creature with 2 very noteworthy subtypes, right? It's a merfolk, it's a wizard. There's a lot of support for those tribes. And then it's also 3 mana, so Sun Titan and stuff like that can get it back. The fact that it's a creature, just in general, put aside everything else I just said, if you need there's creature tutors and stuff like that. If you just need to find it right away,
there's plenty of wizard tutors.
This card it's $10 right now. I could see it maybe going down a little bit, but I think as time goes on, it is actually the Merfolk deck in Modern is making a little bit of a splash again, and in part it's because of this card. That's funny. I didn't even do that on purpose. But yeah, I think this card's kind of sweet.
Mark my words, within a year, this card will be everywhere.
Yeah. The fact that it can take something off the board without actually taking it off the board is really important, because sometimes there's like a commander where like, yeah, I could take it off the board, but then they can just recast it next turn.
Exactly.
It doesn't really help.
They have to use one of their resources to get rid of it, and that's honestly one of the best parts about it to me.
All right, Preston, you kind of are cheating on your next one, but you have a cycle of cards. Why don't you just maybe read your favorite one and then briefly summarize the rest of the cycle?
So my first card up here is the Court cycle from the Eldraine Commander set, right? Yeah. So the one I'm specifically talking about is Court of Lochthwain. It's 2 and 2 black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and then it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of target opponent's library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. If you are the monarch until end of turn, you may cast a spell from among cards exiled with Court of Lochthwain without paying its mana cost. I really like Monarch. I haven't put a ton in decks, but that's another deck idea I've been thinking about doing a specific deck build around sometime soon. And I think I'd probably put all 5 of these in there, as long as they have something they can work with. And this one is probably the best one, besides maybe the green, but that one's just pretty generically good green stuff. This one is a little more special, I think, and I really like the way it works.
I think the whole cycle's pretty neat, but ultimately it just comes down to I really like the Monarch.
Yeah.
I've almost built a Monarch deck too, just because it's a fun way to keep the game moving, and everyone just kind of likes it.
Real quick, I'm gonna put all 5. There's 5, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put all 5 of them on screen, but I'm only gonna show this one for an extended period of time because that's the one we're talking about. But like all 5 of them will pop up.
Cool.
This is. I just love cards that do things like this because Monarch is one of those mechanics that really makes it feel like a multiplayer game. This is the only reason that I love Commander more than any other format is because I love spending time with my friends. I love hanging out with people. I love playing games with my friends. And so playing a multiplayer game like this, it's just one of the things that I really enjoy. And having a mechanic like this that just adds an interesting element to that multiplayer game, it's just, I can't ask for anything more than that. It's wonderful. So I love all these types of cards.
Yeah, so I think Monarch does it best, and I think like Goad is also up there. Like stuff like anything that keeps the action going.
That's why Planes Chase is like one of my favorite ways to play.
Yes. Yeah, we need to do that again sometime. If you haven't seen our Plane Chase video,
go watch
check
that.
out.
That was such a fun game.
Such a fun game. That's probably my like top 3 favorite games we've done.
It's so hard.
I would need to think about it. I don't know.
So my next favorite non-commander card from 2023 is Fairy Mastermind, aka Yuta Takashimi. I believe I pronounced that right, but this is continuing on the legacy of making cards with the world champions. They used to do that a lot. They don't do it as much anymore, but this is one of the cards of bringing it back. For 1 and a blue, it's a 2/1 fairy rogue with flash and flying. Whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card, and then you can pay 3 and a blue to make each player draw a card. So I like this because, well, again, like what we were saying with your last pick, is it has relevant creature types, fairies, rogues, very popular, and it has to do with drawing cards. I like that. And I like that it's taxi, but it's not just shutting down. It's not like, Notion Thief or Narset where it's like, no, you straight up cannot draw any more cards. This is just saying that
if you're greedy, I'm greedy.
Yeah, if you can draw more, but if you do, you're going to be helping me too. And I like that play pattern better, especially with it being 2 mana with flash. Gives it a lot of flexibility. I have this in my Quasar deck. I have a couple other decks I'd like to throw it in. I just really like this card. It's very strong, I think. But again, I think part of what I like about it is that as taxing as it is, you're not saying to your friends you don't get to play Magic, because every time Notion Thief comes down, everyone's like, "Oh my God, no!" This doesn't do that. They're just like, fine. And then the game continues. It doesn't draw hate the same way that some of those other cards do.
But in all fairness, if you play Notion Thief, you are a bad person.
I only have it in like 3 of my decks.
I think I only have it in 1.
Do you guys have anything to add to our little fairy rogue friend?
I always like group hug cards.
I did not know that this was a thing that they had continued to do. So
they did it. There was another one that I know for sure was recent. They have.
I didn't know that they did any
spell
recent champions.
It was like a elite spellbinder, I believe is what it was called. I believe is Reed Duke. Right? Is that right?
What card is he on?
No, wait, no, it's Paulo.
I have a hard time remembering.
All right, I don't know what card. What card? We can figure that out.
You can cut this out if you want.
That's fine. I probably will.
Oh yeah, it's Paulo. Yeah.
Oh, that was from Strixhaven. Okay.
All right.
Well, congratulations to you two, and
anyone else who's ever gotten their own card.
You got a really good card after you. I like the surprise behind it. You can wait till somebody is drawing their second card, and they're like, "Oh, it responds. Flash that out." Yeah. Or if you have the mana to, you can flash it out and then force everyone to draw a card so that you know.
And that happens sometimes.
That moment where you say, "Okay, I'm going to tap 2 blue," and then cast, and they're like, "No!"
They think it's going to be a counter spell. Yeah. Jason, walk us through your second card.
I'm going to turn this my way so I can read it a little bit better. Okay, so my second favorite card from this year is Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. It says, whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. 0 loyalty, draw a card. -2, create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And then -12, target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into its owner's library. This is going in Joyra for sure. 100%, 100,000%. I could play this and then ult it immediately. I feel very confident I could draw 8 cards in one turn with my Joyra deck. Feel very confident about that.
Well, that's true. I think that's true. If you are just playing a deck where you're going to draw an obscene amount of cards and then you can just get to the ultimate ability right away, that is pretty good. I think I've always thought of it more two-dimensionally. I've always thought, like, okay, I mean, the tokens it's making you are pretty impressive. A 2/2 with vigilance isn't nothing. And those are going to get huge because if you're playing this, you're just going to be drawing a lot of cards, right? And even if you're playing it fairly, I feel like those creatures are going to be really good. So, like, if you're playing like some kind of blue token card drawy kind of deck, I feel like this card's pretty decent. I haven't ever played it. I've considered it for a couple of my decks, but I feel like there are homes for this card. I feel like it's pretty decent.
This card is way better than pretty decent, Morgan. This card is insanely good. This as a mono blue planeswalker at that. The fact that this can go in literally any deck that has blue in it. This card is incredible. Not even just from Joyra. There are plenty of decks out there that can draw 8 or more cards in a turn, and you can ult it right away. I think that this card is... I think this card is really, really powerful. 5 mana kind of holds that back. If it was 4 mana, it would be broken, but I think that it's super strong.
I guess my other gripe with it is that the ultimate is target opponent. It's not each opponent.
I was very thankful when I read that. I was like, oh.
But I mean, you're right. It is still pretty good. I mean, because if you really need to do it, you just do it to the one player who's most problematic or whatever. So
see, and especially because at this point in the game, you're probably down to just one other player anyways. If you're drawing 8 cards in a turn,
yeah.
You know, I mean, you're probably at that point where it might just be you and 1 or you and 2 other players.
Just do it to the token player.
One of the reasons that I'm super excited to add this into my Joyra deck is because there's often times when I'm playing Joyra that I'll play enough things that I have 2 players dead for sure. And then if I just had one more way to just take out a 3rd player and kill all 3 players on one turn, that's why I'm really excited to add this into that deck.
Yeah, I feel like any kind of deck where you can get your draw engines going really efficiently and just plop this down, because you can get to that ultimate really fast, but also if you can make those 2/2s, I just really like these 2/2s, man. These 2/2s with vigilance that are just going to get freaking huge.
That's another thing. Any planeswalker that makes bodies to protect it,
they go up in value.
It's good.
Yeah. So, Preston, why don't you walk us through your second favorite not commander card from 2023?
All right, next up we have Last March of the Ents. It's 6 generic and 2 green mana for a sorcery. This spell can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness amongst creatures you control, then put any number of creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. Simple, strong card, costs a lot of mana, but it has a built-in you can't counter it effect, which I really love.
Yeah.
Because everyone hates playing something for like 8 mana and then it gets countered. It never feels good. So just saying you can't do that, I enjoy it. And then that's a great way to try to finish out a game.
So the moral of the story is people need to run more spells like Narset's Reversal or Divide by Zero.
Dovin's Veto.
But you're right. I mean, I do like these kind of effects where you draw cards equal to something about your creature. There's like Risk Cards Expertise and Return of the Wild Speaker and cards like that. I like those cards. I feel like this is like another step up. I feel like it doesn't always go in the same kinds of decks, but if you're playing an Ents deck or a Big Butts deck, or your creatures are just large in general, this goes up in value. And if you're going to have a lot of creatures in your deck, this would go great in New Gulta. Oh.
Arcades.
Arcades, yeah. Yeah. Well, Arcades, I don't... Yeah. It actually would probably be pretty good in Arcades. Yeah. I think it's sweet. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's not super flashy or anything, but it's good, fun Timmy magic.
Not much I have to say about this card. It's called Last March of the Ents. If you think I hate this card, you don't watch the channel.
Jason likes his ends. And speaking of straightforward but good, my last card is also not very flashy. This is my favorite. I think this is a staple. This is Lorien Revealed for 3 blue. It's a sorcery that says draw 3 cards. Most importantly, it has island cycling for 1 generic mana. So the reason that I think this is, if not a staple, pretty damn close to a staple, is because later in the game, 5 mana to draw 3 cards. It's not good, but if you need it, you need it. But the island cycling early game is incredibly helpful because you're going to be able to go get your lands. If like you could confidently keep this in your opening hand, and if you get to the point where you have all your land drops, use it to draw cards. If you're going to miss a land drop, use it to go find a land. Most importantly, it's any island. You can use it to get your shock lands, your OG dual lands if you have those some reason. You can grab your triomes with them. These are really good. And you might be wondering, hey, this is like the most or second most open set of all time, and it's a common. Why is it $3? It's because it's so good that it's getting played in like Modern and Legacy. Like, that's just how good this is. So I feel like if you're playing, and even in Mono Blue, you might want it too. I just feel like that any deck that's going to have... You're going to want the flexibility. This has to go in there. Like, it's kind of a boring pick, but this is a staple for blue.
I think this is more of a staple for blue than Tishana's Tidebinder is. I was really advocating for Tishana's Tidebinder, but there's absolutely no way that is going in more decks than this card is.
Yeah.
I mean, island cycling for 1. Being able to grab any island card.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's such a good ability to have. And then the backup, 5 mana, draw 3 cards. You're right, it's not great.
It's not great, but it's something.
I would say 90% of the time that you play this card, you're not playing it. You're cycling it away. Yeah. I would say 90%.
I was going to say 99% of the time you're going to go cycle this card.
Yeah.
No, that 10% of the time, that's when you have absolutely no other choice, and you hate that you have to actually cast it and not cycle it.
Oh no, I have to draw cards in blue.
Oh no, I actually have to play a card I put in my deck.
Well, you're right. I think it depends on the game, too. Like, if you're, like, say you are later in the game, maybe it's after a couple board wipes, maybe you just do need the cards. Like, if you top deck this and you don't have that many cards in hand, you're going to feel, not great, but you're going to feel okay casting it to draw 3. But, yes, the island cycling is you're right, absolutely what makes this key, because you're going to be able to put this in even like 5-color decks for mana fixing. You're going to, again, the fact that you can grab your triomes and your fetchable duels and stuff is just insane.
I don't want to alarm you guys, but this card might be good in Simic decks.
Really?
Maybe.
No way.
Just
dude.
maybe.
I did run it in my my Goose Mother deck in that episode. So Jason, why don't you walk us through your favorite non-commander card from the year?
Okay. Getting back to cards that are actually like really good.
You think Lorien Reveal's not good?
No, it's good. It's just not.
It's just not flashy.
It's not this good. So I chose Ichor Moon Gauntlet. It's 2 and a blue for an artifact. And it says planeswalkers you control have 0 loyalty ability, proliferate.
And
Stop right there. And it's just, that's really good. That's in a planeswalker deck. That's so good. And not even that. Even just playing like an infect deck. That's so good. A +1/+1 counters deck. That's so good. But, as Billy Mays famously said, wait, there's more. So it has 0 loyalty, proliferate. And then it says -12, take an extra turn after this one. And then it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent, put an additional counter of that kind on that permanent. This is an insane card, and when you pair it with Teferi that I just listed, and you put both of them in Joyra,
Shut up!
now I'm taking infinite extra turns, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how Jason has a really good time. Yeah, I'm so excited about this card. I love it so much. I actually... I don't have it, and I haven't put it in Joyra yet, but I don't play Joyra very much because, like I said earlier, Joyra is a deck that not many people enjoy playing unless I make the announcement like, hey, I'm playing this deck, it's really strong, it does this, play whatever you want, but I really just want to play this. I'm excited to add it in. It's just to get it out with that Teferi, and it synergizes really well with Joyra simply because it's an artifact. It's a 3-mana artifact. So even if I don't have the Planeswalker on the battlefield, just casting it does something for me with Joyra on the battlefield. So this is a really, really good card. I'm really excited, and it's absolutely my favorite card from this year.
I like that it's kind of 2 different cards because the first paragraph really says, don't put me in anything other than a Planeswalker deck. But then the second paragraph is like, no, if you have a handful of non-creature spells and you care about any kind of counter, you can put me in there. So I like the fact that it's flexible. Like I think it is going to be best in Planeswalker decks. Like if you have like 20 or more Planeswalkers in your deck, like if you're actually playing Super Friends, this card is awesome. But that second line of text is kind of just good by itself if you are just playing some kind of other deck. Like maybe you're playing Infect or other form of poison. If you're doing +1/+1 counters, if you're just playing a strategy like that you're going to have a decent amount of non-creature spells anyways, it's decent there too. But it is best in Planeswalker decks because guess what are also non-creature spells? Planeswalkers. But yeah, it's cool. And terrifying.
I don't know if you can justify not putting this in your Super Friends deck if it has blue. Yeah. Like it'd be so hard to justify not putting it in.
Yeah.
The only reason I could understand you not putting it in there is if it's a budget deck.
Well, yeah,
that's literally it.
I don't think you can build Super Friends on a budget though. Like I think a lot of the newer Planeswalkers, just because like Planeswalkers in general have fallen out of favor.
I think you could build a budget Super Friends deck just by using Planeswalkers from War of the Spark. There's a lot of inexpensive Planeswalkers in that set.
Yeah, I mean there's like some uncommon ones, but like the ones that are like
I didn't say it would be good. I said it would be budget.
Okay.
How much does this card cost?
Like $6.
The word good never came out of my mouth.
Well, I was just thinking that like I don't know if you can like a lot of the best Planeswalkers are going to be expensive-ish, $5 to $6, maybe a lot more if it's like I don't know. Liliana Dreadhorde General or something, which is like a $20 card.
Something like that, yeah.
So, I mean, and so this, I'm just saying that, like, I don't know if this is the make or break for budget reasons, just because it's a $6 card. Not that that's nothing for a single piece of paper stock, but,
right.
Compared to what the rest of your 99 is going to look like, I don't think that's what's going to make or break the bank. But this card's kind of bonkers in a Super Friends deck.
And good in some other decks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it sometimes could make the cut in a couple other decks, but
see, and that's why I wanted to put it in Joyra because I looked at it and I was
it is an artifact.
I was like, it's an artifact, so immediately that synergizes, and it does something with another card that I wanted to put into Joyra, and it also makes me think: are there other Planeswalkers that would just make Joyra even better?
Yes, there are quite a few red and or blue Planeswalkers that care about artifacts. So.
The 15 Saheelis.
But then it just becomes, what do I take out? But that's a conversation for another time.
Preston, why don't you walk us through your last card and our overall last card of this episode?
All right, we've had way too much blue this episode, so I think it's time we bring it back to a color we can all agree on. So here's a green card. Composer of Spring, 1 and a green for a 1/3 Satyr Bard creature with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 6 or more enchantments, instead, you can put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. I like this card a lot because it's an Enchantress style effect that isn't just draw a card, gain some life. It's incentivizing you to like have some more lands hitting the battlefield. You can get creatures out if you have enough enchantments. So that's what really piqued my interest. And like, I'm pretty sure back when we played that pre-con episode where this comes from, I think this was my MVP card of that game.
Yeah, I was just about to say, didn't you play this on that episode?
It came down on turn 2 or turn 3, and it gave you like probably like
So
it
much
lets you see
value.
like half of your deck.
I'm pretty
It was
sure
so
in that
insane.
end step, we all unanimously said that this was without a doubt the MVP of the game because it did so much for you throughout that game.
I think that was the one episode of Upkeep that we didn't have a traditional after show for, because it was our first sponsored episode, and we didn't know how to do end step with the sponsored episodes.
Right.
But I think our post game talk, which we do with all of our games anyways, I think we were all like, "Yo, Composer of Springs is bonkers."
I love this card a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that it's down to like $5. It looks like, you know, it's something that if you have an Enchantress decks, you can realistically pick up. Because I remember when it came out, it was like pre-sale prices for this card were just insane. But this card is just it really is that good.
It's 2 mana. It's 2 mana.
It's 2 mana, and if you're playing Enchantress decks, you're going to be triggering this all the time. It's going to just give you I love that. Like you said, it's incentivizing the landfall. I don't know if there's like an intersection for like landfall and Enchantress to meet. That might be an interesting thing to look for at some point. But
There's a ton of
opens up.
enchantments that have landfall triggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's
Felidar Retreat.
Felidar Retreat.
Ooh.
Like that's a whole cycle right there, and there's a whole bunch of other ones.
You would have to build a deck that's green and white.
But you wouldn't have to.
Like,
You wouldn't-
there's
A
no-
green and white enchantment deck. How hard would that possibly be?
But I like the idea that because it's getting those extra lands, that it also allows you to play the bigger, scarier enchantments. Because again, I mentioned this earlier in the video that I kind of hate playing against Enchantress because it's like draw, play, draw, play, draw, play, and then like you're like, am I dead? Am I dead? And they're like, pass the turn, and I'm like, you did nothing, you know. And
So
the
you can
fact
also
that-
put scary creatures down to actually end a game.
Exactly. You can actually play the bigger enchantments or the bigger threats because of it's churning through your deck and giving you advantage, but it's also going to be ramping.
I am shocked there's not something on here that's like equal to the amount of enchantments you have as like a way to keep it from you getting 6 enchantments out then hitting an Eldrazi right away.
This
I'm glad it's not there, but I'm kind of surprised it isn't.
this also could probably go really well in a Saga's deck.
Yeah, it's definitely going in that deck if I build it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Comes from the same pre.
Because it's not even a cast enchantments, which is also really big.
Yes, the fact that it's entered the battlefield is
ETB.
important because the head commander Onyxia, right?
Yeah.
Like you played it on that episode.
It's bringing
Onyxia,
enchantments back as creatures.
yeah, from the graveyard. So then you wouldn't get any of your cast Enchantress triggers, but you would get the enter the battlefield one. So
You know what else this works with? Miracle. Oh my gosh. I think I just found a new card to add to Miracle.
oh, that would be so sweet. But that is going to be it for us, guys. That is our top 3 commanders and top 3 non-commanders from 2023. We had a question or two to answer. We do Q&A at the end of the podcast. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the episode, but if you have questions, if you have comments, let us know as well what your favorite cards from the year were, all that stuff. Let us know in the comments. Interact with us. We love getting the feedback. We love keeping conversations going. Again, we will be back. I already forgot, December 3rd, so not 2 weeks from now, but 3 weeks from now. We're taking a slightly longer break because of Christmas and the New Year's. So we will see you then with some more.
Did you say December 3rd?
I mean January 3rd. I'm always confused about timelines. It's also 1:15 in the morning when we're recording this. So
It's
we're all
late.
tired. Yeah. So we will see you guys later. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that YouTube algorithm stuff. Check out some of our other videos if you're new.
Everybody have a happy new year. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays. Be safe. Gosh, I hope you were
Don't play
good.
blue.
Yeah. Yes.
Bye.
Bye.